Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B greatness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. CMOs know all too well the pressure of proving marketing's value. They also know when done right, marketing can be a core driver of business success. So the real question is, how the heck do you get from the promise of marketing to irrefutable impact? Fortunately for you, we're joined today by three marketing leaders ready to share their approach to this age-old challenge. With that, let's bring on Shirley Macbeth, CMO of Forrester, and a returning guest who previously appeared on the show to discuss B2B customer events and driving digital entertainment. Hello, Shirley. How are you, and where are you this fine day?
Hi, Drew. I am in our headquarters in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I've been there. I
Yes.
know it well, and fresh off of your great conference. So, talk a little bit about. So it's funny. I was just thinking about this as we were pre-gaming. I mean, this show is sort of a double thing. It's how do you do it for as the CMO for Forrester, but it's obviously you're advising companies on how they do it and CMOs on how they do it. So let's start at least with you and how you're ensuring that Forrester's marketing strategies are aligned with the overall business objectives.
Absolutely. Well, as you can imagine, we have a tool for all of this and we have research. So I'm very lucky to be able to take advantage of having a leg up and using a lot of Forrester's research that is geared towards B2B CMOs. But your question was, how do I ensure that our marketing strategies are aligned with the overall business objectives? And we've taken a very formal approach to this. We have a tool that I use religiously called a plan on a page. And it's as simple and elegant as it sounds. It's hard to put together because it requires a lot of prioritization and negotiation, but the end result ends up being a map essentially of your of the goals and strategies that you have outlined. So it starts with a column that has the business objectives for your company and kind of goes from there and looks at the marketing strategy to support that, and then the marketing specific goals and measurements. And importantly, it also talks about what you're not going to do, right? And that's sometimes the hardest thing. So it has some prioritization, and it ripples through to interlocks and other dependencies. And the fabulous thing that this is now my fourth year at Forrester using this tool, it's kind of our North Star. We start using that in October for the year coming up, and it ripples down across all business units. So it's not just a marketing plan on a page, it's a business plan on the page with marketing having a version that says, how am I going to meet those objectives?
Well, I would love to see that sometime because
Yes.
back in the Renegade days, and I talk about this in my book about a plan on a page. And we have for anybody watching the show, we do have a version that's out there that's public. But I'd love to see yours someday, Shirley, and just compare, even if we can't show it to everyone, because I'm curious, what the exercise of doing a plan on a page. What's wonderful about it is it's one page.
One
And,
page.
right.
Yep.
And so it really does focus everybody's attention because if it's not on the page, in theory, we're not doing it, right?
Right. And I mean, you'd sort of at first you put like micro font and you try to get everything on the page, right? But the reality is it's about trade-offs, it's about prioritization, it's about then anchoring it back to that goal and objective that is at the left-hand column of this plan on the page. Is each function rippling, forward to be able to advance that? So I would say I'd love to see your plan on page. We could compare that, but it basically, I have a marketing my level version, I have a sales version, and then for each of my subunits within marketing, my demand gen, my brand, my, all of the teams, they then even have a version of that ripples off the master that helps set our goals, and we review it, periodically in our team meetings to see how we're doing. So it's a great way to stay anchored towards what the business is looking for.
And how long does it take one to create it, and what's the review process like?
It takes a few months, honestly, because it's not just, hey, let's ripple. It is the process of making those trade-offs and saying, how much money do we have? What's our level of awareness in this particular market? So I would say definitely it's faster now that we've done it a couple times, but 2 to 3 months. And then we review it with my peers at the executive team. So, and particularly sales, product, and marketing working together on it.
And do you have like, because I've seen this in some cases where you have sort of red, yellow, green that shows you how you're doing each quarter against
Yeah.
those?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I use it then for operational reviews with my team, and we do exactly that. We have the column on marketing goals, and some of them are annual goals, some of them are monthly goals, right? But then you can really tie your performance and see where maybe we need to adjust. And we've done that, certainly. It's not set in stone, but it's, then an open negotiation back with our stakeholders.
Interesting. And I'm wondering at this point in time, two things. One is uh, how integrated and this document is. I mean, I know you could do it as a Google sheet or an Excel
Yep.
sheet, but I'm imagining that an Airtable or some other thing would enable it
Yep.
to be interactive and shared and uh,
Yeah, I mean, right, it could be all those things right now. It's an Excel tool that then outputs. Everybody loves PowerPoint, so it outputs to PowerPoint. But then I literally put it in my workday goals for my teams, and cut and paste from different things. So it's quite integrated in how we do our processes.
yeah, it's so interesting. I could keep going on this one because I feel like what you've done there with that notion is that okay, like we got business objectives, we got to get to those, and this is all we're gonna do, because
Yep.
in reality, it's kind of all we can do, because budgets
Yep.
are always limited. So, talk a little bit about you say business objectives. I want to understand what's that really mean, because we use these language like objectives, and people are not always don't look at objectives the same as strategies and so forth. So, what is a business objective?
So the biggest column on the left side of our sheet is our revenue goals. And we've got our revenue goals, our margin targets, and what we call bookings, which is bookings for that year that then turn into revenue the following year, because we're a subscription-based business. So it's literally that, the very specific metrics that we have set for Wall Street and for ourselves and all of that. So it's very tied to the numbers. And then as you go down, you have the sales version and the marketing version. It's, how is marketing doing the reverse waterfall to figure out how many leads we need to get, to get back to meet those objectives. So that's the way we do it.
Got it. Got it. Um, yeah. Well, so the fundamental question in this show that we're trying to get at is okay, we have business objectives and we have marketing.
Yep.
And we're trying to draw a straight line of actions and output. But as John Miller so famously put it, marketing is not a popcorn machine where you can put in a little corn and it just pop, or a gumball machine where you press a button
Okay.
and a gumball comes out. That's the better analogy. So, uh, how do you, there's some gaps here because this is not straight line stuff.
It isn't. And I think that's one of the most important things about the interlock that we have. So our first column is business objectives. Our second column is Forrester internally has a set of initiatives every year. And in fact, they cross multiple years and they are all cross-functional in nature. So one for us happens to be around retention and one is around growth through different areas. And so that's the second column because it's not just straight line marketing. Boop, we're going to make that sales. There's this idea of cross-functional initiatives to drive that. So that's really important to show the dependencies and also how you're working together.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well, we are hopefully Melissa, my sound should be better now. uh, so I or Laura. Anyway,
That's good.
yeah, it's hopefully a little better. I was missed that it is a live show. So occasionally we do things on the fly here, just like marketers do. So before we leave this thing, have there been any? So as you're getting through, there's plan and then there's reality. How do you make adjustments and tweaks as you're going along quarter to quarter to make sure that this plan on a page continues to align? You know it's intended to align with business objectives, but that it does.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to definitely be nimble on occasion. So one example of the prioritization is Forrester serves 11 personas or different types of audiences. So a technology leader, a marketing leader, CX leader, all sorts of different personas. We can't market to 11 of those, and nobody can. You can't splinter your impact that way. So we had decided to prioritize to 3, and then if all else failed, really 1 for where we put the most of our money. And sometimes we've had to be nimble in adjusting funds given some opportunities or market changes. So, it is a living document.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I do want to remember to come back to think about the AI implications of this, because I feel like, you could look at your plan on the page and you could run it through a generative AI and you could say, what am I missing? Or what are the things? Or who, and it'd be interesting to see how all that goes. But we're going to go on and bring on Dan Lowden. Dan is the CMO of BLACKBIRD.AI and an industry expert who has graced our stage before to delve into the topic of cybersecurity and FUD-based marketing. Hello, Dan. Wonderful to see you again.
Hello, Drew. Good to see you.
And so, again, where are you this fine day?
I am at the home office in Summit, New Jersey, just outside of New York City.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, first, you heard some of what Shirley had to say. I'm just curious if what in your mind is your planning, what was consistent with the way you think about things, and where do you deviate?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Shirley said about, the playbook on a page or the marketing on the page. I think, I've learned, and I'm sure, senior marketers have over time, if you don't really show what your plans are, what the strategic plan is for marketing to support the business goals, nobody's going to know it, right? So it's what I've been creating for many, many years, is what I call the marketing playbook that I bring to every company that I've been involved in. And it's based off of history and knowledge. It's based off of new technology, new ways to market, and it's the best way to help have marketing have a strategic impact on the company's business success. And to me, that's industry leadership, brand awareness, and brand leadership, but also driving the business. And my goal is always to drive from a marketing-driven lead perspective as it results to sales is between 33% and 50% of the overall number for the company. So it shows that marketing is the lead source and engages with customers across the journey to have them to build a successful relationship, and that turns into revenue. So my goal is to show everybody in a strategic playbook, here's our plan of action, here's where we need everybody's help because it's a team effort, here's how we team up with sales to ensure we deliver everything they need. And then that way it's very visible what marketing is doing and the results show it. And that to me is has been successful every company that I've been a part of.
Well, I love that this is, and it has been, because I've worked with you at some of these other companies. I know how well they've done, but I'm curious, maybe you could give us, and so Shirley's plan on a page was pretty simple. What, from a marketing playbook standpoint, what's in it? How long is it? What's it look like?
Yeah, so it's that playbook on a page, I would say, but it gives more detail behind it, right? So say there's 4 or 5 key marketing initiatives for the company that we're going to focus on, and then it goes into depth as to what our plan of action is around each one of those strategic initiatives, right? So when I first joined BLACKBIRD.AI, the first initiative was to create compelling content to educate and drive awareness of the problem of how misinformation, disinformation could impact brand reputation and cancel a brand. So there wasn't that content there, and that was my number one priority, is to build very, very compelling content to educate marketers, chief communication officers, even chief information security officers on how big the problem is, and give examples of how it's happening so that they can be better educated about when these things might happen to them.
And so making compelling content, which is something you weren't doing, I'm imagining that you had to sort of staff accordingly as too. That had implications for it.
It did. I mean, I hired it. We have a small team, but it's a mighty team. But it was also leveraging everybody in the company. We had a narrative intelligence team. They were going deep into investigations and they were publishing reports more for customers. We then turned that into more of a public type of report, obviously taking any names or any specific examples out of it, but enough where it was still powerful to the industry, powerful to brands to understand, hey, these are the things that are happening every day that you need to be aware of, and you don't want to be blindsided by them. You want to be prepared for them. So we didn't have to hire a huge team to do that. It was leveraging a lot of the team members that were already within the company that were actually excited to publish. They wanted to have a voice, and we gave them a voice. And that's part of a team that we created and we branded as our Raven Narrative Intelligence team. They're made up of threat intelligence analysts, data scientists, and really, really, really smart people who have something to say. And we share reports around specific examples of narrative attacks that are really helpful to companies to say, wow, I didn't know all this was happening, and I didn't know there was something we could do about it and be proactive about it.
Interesting. A lot to unpack there. And I want to go into a couple things first. So a lot of folks want to develop content leadership and thought leadership as a way, particularly when you're in a category like yours, where you're bringing new ways. It's a different kind of a threat that they hadn't really thought about necessarily or didn't have an understanding. You also sort of went deep on the expertise was there in the organization and found those people and extracted it. So I've sort of two different questions that go different ways. One is just how do you make sure that this content, first of all, is high quality, and second of all, gets in front of the right people?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially in the cybersecurity world or anyone that deals with crisis from a chief communication officer perspective or CMO perspective, you can't really bullshit them, right? If you do, you're done, right? You have to have compelling content that is super helpful to them, that that you're being honest with them, you're creating a relationship with them, you're creating trust with them by giving them content that's really valuable to the job that they do today and help them protect the company. Right? It'll help them with their own careers. It'll help protect the company. And when they see that the content is sincere and that it's real and that it's in depth, it's just not like sugar coated, it's real data where you can say, look, these are how harmful narratives spread up from a single post that can turn really, really harmful to a company. Here's who's behind it. Here's how its influence. They go, wow, this is something new to me, and it's really, really helpful. So, and that's the way you build a strategic relationship with them. And then to your point about getting in front of them, this is where you got to have the right content. You have to have the right story and the right message to the right person based off of what their needs are. And if you have a sense of intent, which a lot of marketing tools give today, you can be very, very targeted in a way that provides incredible value to the people you're reaching out to, because they have a problem. They're searching for something to solve a problem. And if you engage with them in the right way, they're really going to appreciate it. And that's how you break through. And then you also have in the background, especially in our world, this is a topic that's in the news every day, right? We had the World Economic Forum announce this is the #1 global risk to the world in 2024, misinformation, disinformation. So there's also, winds at our back that are also helping spread this news that it's a big, big problem and it's impacting everyone. And we're in a good position to help, and that helps too.
So you talked about in-depth and so forth. And, I think that there's a perception that nobody reads anything, that it's all got to be TikTok friendly and so forth. But this is scary stuff. This is new stuff. And so talk a little bit about the balance between getting their attention short form and then going into depth and how you manage that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why right now it's pretty much blog focused, which is light reading, quick reading, the quick understanding with real data, with real infographics that they can understand very easily and see the impact. I mean, they also see things happening in the news, so they're like, wow, we don't want this to be us, right? So that, yes, it is a challenge, it is scary, right? But it's better to be prepared in your role when something like this happens to get ahead of it than to be surprised by it. And the marketing leaders, the chief communication leaders, the cybersecurity leaders are all realizing that's where they need to be now. Like a year ago, it wasn't like that. This was a whisper. Now everybody is kind of screaming to say, look, this is, we have elections, we have wars, we have brands being canceled. The power of AI is in the hands of these, influencers or these cyber criminals or nation states or hyper agenda driven communities, and they can do damage really, really quickly and in a massive way. So we are, as a marketer, need to be in a strong position where we can be ready for these type of attacks and be able to respond to them to minimize the risk to the brand.
Got it. All right. Well, Allie has been waiting patiently, so we're going to bring her on, and we'll come back to you because I do have some more questions. So let's welcome Allie McCarthy, president and founder of Amplify Your Voice Studio, who has previously joined us on the show to shed light on the intricacies of SaaS marketing and account-based marketing. Hello, Allie. Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So where are you this fine day?
I am in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, Drew.
All right. Downingtown. Is that closer to Philly or Pittsburgh?
Closer to Philly, about 40 minutes outside of Philadelphia.
All right. I'm grounded now with my Pennsylvania map right there. Okay. So you've heard Shirley and Dan talking about the sort of linking of marketing and sort of getting business objectives, designing the marketing to do it, connecting dots to even deliver a certain percentage of revenue. What's your experience in this case? First of all, any thoughts on what they said?
So I think that the companies that are really excelling by using marketing strategically are doing two things. And this was said earlier, but it's worth repeating. They have a focus and they have a plan. And they understand that they cannot do everything, and that if they're going to win competitive market share, then they need to be understood in the marketplace for just one or two things and not 10 things that you might want to be known for. So I think that it's a brilliant exercise to pause as a management team, plan, realize that you can only accomplish so many things at any given 12-month rolling period, and that you need to have these steps in order to do that. And I think that was some of the detail that we were talking about. So starting with the plan, but then having those steps that you need to lay forward, because I've said this everywhere I go, 0 to 1 is the hardest place to get to. Not having a plan is that 0 spot. Getting the plan is 1. Now, 1 to 10 is a beautiful place because you're iterating, you're taking a pulse on the market and what competition is doing and all those spaces. But so many companies, that 0 to 1 push for them is really, really cumbersome. And I think the tools that we talked about today are brilliant.
So we've got, plan on a page from Shirley. We've got Dan's marketing playbook. Do you have sort of in your mind when you're working with clients or when you in your past role as CMO that what's your sort of plan look like?
Absolutely. I mean, you start with really talking about where do you want to be? What is the growth that you need to achieve? And so sitting down with everyone, getting them together, understanding that you want to be known for something particular in the marketplace and what's the path forward, because that will drive the strategies and tactics that are employed, the budget, the timeline, all the different underlying activities that need to happen. all start with the North Star. Where do you need to be financially? So what are the revenue numbers we need to hit? And then what do we want to be known for competitively? What is the brand? What do we want people to know about our story? And I think that you then can define all the strategies and tactics underneath it. The toolkit is the same. I just think when you activate it is slightly nuanced to what you're trying to accomplish and by when and how much budget you have. So how fast can we go?
So I want to I mean, it sounds simple enough. We've got revenue goals and, what are we known for? But what, and I've written about this quite a bit, that last year and early this year, you have a lot of situations where there was, hey, our revenue goal is plus 30%. By the way, your budget is minus 30%. And the revenue goal was arbitrary and just handed to them by whoever the investor or owner or so forth. So I'm nervous to say, okay, sure, just make revenue the goal. I mean, I know every business wants to get there, but these numbers that are often put out there are like, get there at all costs, get there. And they're not necessarily based on rational sort of analysis. And so I guess that's just me ranting a little bit on behalf of CMOs, but also I don't know if that sparks any thoughts on your part.
I would just wrap it up with that by saying, I hear you and I understand that and have experienced that, but go back to 0 to 1. So prior to that, you didn't have the plan in place. So just the act of setting a revenue goal and getting a full business plan with marketing and the leadership team aligned will get. Now, if you need to readjust things throughout the year, I don't know a company that hasn't. So just because that's where you started the journey isn't where you're going to end. But what you've done in the meantime is you've really, I always say, one story, many voices. You've aligned everyone around a vision and you will be able to move the company forward. Did it happen at the timeline or the revenue numbers you set forth? Maybe, maybe not. Most likely not, because you have a higher goal and lower budget. But remember, you've now grown the company from a maturity perspective, and that is tremendous.
I have a sort of philosophical thought, and I don't know if the marketplace has the answers to this, but if every company simply says, our growth goal for 2024 is 30% growth, and that's what everybody is aligned in, is that company going to succeed? And the reason I ask is increasing revenue is not something that motivates employees necessarily, right? What motivates employees is we take care of our customers better than anybody else in the industry, or, some kind of, this is what we're doing to help save the world or whatever, whether it's a larger promise or even a very specific promise. We're just helping people in one way or another. And that's what makes them feel good. Does this, and I know I'm in a minority and the show is all about this, but I'm still just wondering philosophically if this actually drives businesses.
I do think people want to align around a common purpose, and I don't think it's one or the other. And it wasn't until I became my own business owner did I really understand the intersection of some of these areas. I think before I was just an employee, and now I am 100% invested in this company. And it's a different mentality, it's a different plan, the way you look at life, the way you consume the business. And I just think that you can take some of that as a leadership team, which is probably more closely aligned to some of those areas, and let the employees in on the growth, be transparent. I think we've talked a lot about this in some of our meetings, is that, all employees should be accountable to the bottom line and understand, what does that mean? Because that's how we measure what we're doing. That's how it measure all the good work we're doing, has to have some tangible measurement to it. So I think it's okay to allow employees into the financials a little bit more and let them align the purpose and the numbers and explicitly tie those together.
Okay, and not or. I'll buy that. And I know most of the CMOs don't have a choice, which is probably more important, is that is the way business works for the most part. Is there another trend or anything that we should have talked about already that you think is going to have that, or is already having, besides Gen AI, because that we all know is huge, but anything else that you're seeing with your clients right now?
I'm seeing three things really, and I'll go through them quickly. So creativity, I'm seeing AI as a tool for super creativity that will unlock what teams can do. Obviously, it's a productivity tool, but it's also allowing good to great and allowing folks that are phenomenal at what they do to really elevate it. And I think that is, but it's also, which is my second trend, content is king. So great content is going to matter because the people that were meh are kind of going to be good with AI, but great is still going to win. That's going to help you from a demand gen perspective, branding, every single component. So content, good content will remain king and will certainly be relevant for growth firms. And then the last I just put is construct, meaning what does the construction of your team look like? Because firms are still grappling with hybrid, remote, or on site. We're seeing a lot in the financial services industry mandating teams to come back in the office. I do think that's going to be a trend that impacts marketers and businesses again, because we haven't completely solved it, because we have hired some amazing people far away from our home offices. And what are we going to do with them? And we have found work-life balance as working parents. And what are we going to do with that? And we have not answered that as an industry at all.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Those are great. And we can review some of those when we come back. But now we're going to spend some time, bring everybody back and talk about CMO Huddles, my favorite topic. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is a close-knit community of over 300 highly effective B2B marketers who share, care, and dare each other to greatness. Now, there's a lot of time constraints on CMOs these days, so everything about CMO Huddles is designed to help leaders save time and empower them to make faster, better decisions. Shirley, Dan, Ali, you're all incredibly busy. Any specific examples? I know we've done this on the show before, but do you have anything sort of that you'd like to share recently about CMO Huddles that might have been helpful to you? Feel free to jump in.
Yeah.
I'll just give a quick comment that just, as a CMO, it's kind of lonely at the top. Who do you talk to at your company? Probably, nobody knows as much as you do on a topic at your specific company, but then to be able to talk to a peer group and hear other tips and tricks, it's just, it's gold every time we get on a forum like this to hear what everybody else is doing.
Love it. Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a part of the group for a long time, and it's been incredibly helpful to me, just to talk to my peers, right? And it's like we're all, on this journey together. It is really, really hard and difficult. And if we can learn from each other about what works, what doesn't, it's just been incredibly beneficial.
Thank you for that. Ali, anything?
It's a transparent place where you can have these candid, wonderful conversations about where you're at and where you want to go. And it's special time that I spend with these folks, and they have become, people in my life that I turn to constantly for resources, support, help, ideas. It is a tremendous value to me professionally and personally.
Well, we're grateful to the three of you for continuing to participate and be huddlers. If you're a senior B2B marketer who needs a shortcut to B2B greatness, take a second to sign up for our free starter program at CMOHuddles.com. Okay, so let's get back, all of us on the right here. Dan, you mentioned that your goal for marketing was to deliver 33 to 50% of, let's call it, pipeline. And I thought, it's in some sense, it's wonderful that you put that out there. And I know that that's a conversation every CEO probably wants to hear. Shirley, as you heard that, did you go, whoa?
Well, first of all, congratulations. That's huge. That's wonderful. Yeah, no, I mean, it's great to be able to translate that kind of impact to the business and to be able to quantify it in those terms. I find, and one of the things that marketers struggle with a lot is that it's not just, to your point, Drew, earlier, that it's not just the revenue or the closed won impact. There's also other more intangibles around the brand or the customer experience or other things that we are also responsible for. But having some of those hard metrics, and especially Dan, your results are fabulous.
Well, and that's where I'm wondering, and I'm with everyone, the revenues over here, revenue is often a lagging indicator of all the things that you did along the way. We know that customers do a lot of research and they go to your website and they probably, there's for every sales touch, there's probably 10 marketing touches. And if you really broke it down, it might get too complicated. So you sort of try to create this very simple cause and effect that doesn't actually exist, right? And so here you have this simple plan, and so I'm just curious as you're doing it, and you're even within the. So Dan, you put that number out there, and you commit yourself to doing that. How does that sort of help you? I mean, I know it helps you from a expectation management standpoint, but man, you got to light the fire.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%, right? It's the brand leadership piece of it, industry leadership, 100%. Like that has to be a key part of what we do, right? And that's where a lot of the content and a lot of the activity that we're involved in enables it. But it has to drive results, right? We can't just, there's some benefits that it's wonderful, but a lot of times I'm focusing on what drives results. And to me, the biggest indicator is inbound requests for, hey, I want to learn more about your product. And they've already done the research and they are requesting us to talk to them, right? And that's a major step for any prospect to take, right? That's when they're committing, they're giving their time, they're sharing their information. And to me, that's the key indicator. Everything else above that, yes. We track all that. And we want to make sure that we're engaging as best we can at the top of the funnel as successfully as we can. But it's when they reach out to us and say, we have a problem, we need help, we want to learn more from you. And to me, that's the biggest indicator that I focus on. And then we track that across the customer journey. We engage with them along the way, along with our salespeople in a very collaborative way, which is key because that doesn't happen at a lot of organizations. But we work very well together from a sales marketing leadership perspective and sales and marketing team perspective to help them be successful, right? And then at the end is, okay, this deal closed. What was the lead source from it, right? And that's an important thing to go back to because, okay, this is where your opportunities came from. Let's do more of that, right? And what things didn't work, let's do less of that. And to me, that's where I spend a lot of my time.
So, and let's talk about that because this is, and for everyone, you're getting inbound. That person at that moment may have read an article. They may have talked to a friend. They may have seen you at a trade show. They may have talked to a competitor already. Who knows, right? And yet, what you're seeing is the form fill because of the LinkedIn ad. You could have this issue of attribution that may or may not be real. I'm curious, Ali or Shirley, as you're looking at this, it would be wonderful, and every CEO and CFO would love to say, I'm going to spend 100% of our dollars on things that drive inbound interest. Shirley, Ali, feel free to jump in here.
I'm laughing because I get that conversation quite a lot. Well, can't you just do the one thing that is going to convert? And we all know as marketers, there's I think we have the math at Forrester, something like, 17 to 27 touches occur, whether it's sales, marketing, reading materials. It's not a linear, one thing does one thing. So it's a terrible conversation to be in. It's the wrong conversation, but I think people outside of marketing struggle with it's almost magic. How does this happen? And it's hard to explain and hard to show. One of the things I think about is I of course talk about marketing sourced and do all those types of things, but I'm trying to talk in the language of the sales people. So what I, will go back and say, well, how much of their pipeline, or how, talk in terms that are less marketing speak and then more business speak. That's been more successful than just talking about AQLs and MQLs, and people don't, no matter how many times you talk about it, it's hard to grasp if you're not in marketing.
Right. And the salesperson's life is pretty basic. It's like, did I close the deal and get commission or not? And
Right.
so, right. And so if you help them get to an opportunity that actually closed, in theory, they might thank you. In theory.
Yeah.
And so it is nice because we have this debate a lot about, do we talk about marketing source? Is it really even relevant at this point? We're all focused on revenue. And if we look at it that way, then we're in this competition with them. And I don't know. Allie, where are you right now in terms of, should marketers actually be providing marketing sourced as a data point?
I just think we have to sometimes go back to marketing as in the business and as thinking like a business owner. And if we go back to where we started the conversation, which was a singular plan, well, then it isn't just appropriate to attribute some of these things to marketing, because it should be the entire company moving toward these plans and towards these goals and objectives. So when we think of attribution or correlation or causation, because now we have it, it is so nuanced. I really do believe if you think of as a business owner would, do they care if it was marketing or service or sales or national accounts or whoever it was, or someone from the board making an introduction? Like, does it matter? If you're all getting to that destination, you win. And so I do find sometimes it annoys me to have to say it's attributed to marketing, because I'm like, no, if we do this right, if we're going in this particular direction as a team, as we stated we would, then it's all of us. Yes, we want to have that information to do more of what works. So, but we would be measuring that across the entire organization anyway. So I just feel like that accountability isn't just on marketing. That's on everyone to know what went well with client service, what went well with onboarding, what went well with your sales sequences, and then what went well with marketing. So we're all in it together. That's, that's my...
I mean, if you think about it, even let's just say for a moment that the salesperson went out and found this opportunity, that prospect is still going to go to the website. They're going to still watch the demo. They're still going to use the sales enablement, the tools that marketing. So there is no such thing as a deal that happens that marketing doesn't touch today. I think pretty much categorically that is true.
Yeah. I would agree, Drew. And I think to what the team here is saying, I 100% agree. We track the lead source of everything. Whether it's board related or whether it's sales direct or whether it's channel, you name it, we have to track it all. I think what I want to do is show the impact that marketing is having directly, and it's having an indirect impact on everything else, right? So if I know what that lead source is, and to us, Salesforce is the source of truth, is when that deal is put into Salesforce, who put it in first, where did it come from, right? That's kind of how you can best track it today. To me, I agree. We're 100% all in this together. But from a marketing perspective, I want to do everything that I can to make everyone successful. But I also want to take credit for the things that we do, so I can go get more budget and do more of that to help the company be really successful.
Well, and I think that's the tricky part here, is because it is, yes, if something is working, you want to be able to invest more.
Yeah.
And that makes total sense, because suddenly you're going to be able to give a lever to a CFO and say, hey, you know what, if we spend another 100,000 here in marketing versus hiring another salesperson, that might lead to 6x versus the salesperson leading to 3x. So I get that you have to have this information. But and this conversation is fascinating, because really what we started out with saying, marketing as business driver. So fundamentally, what you measure is the conversation, right? Because business driver means we're driving business. So I get it. I'm struggling with this though, Dan, and and I think every CMO struggles with it right now, because you're a fine line between marketing's killing it, sales isn't delivering, closing enough of the deals, or when everybody is winning, Ali is right. If every deal is closing, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, I would say I would still very much care, but it's a great thing when that happens and we're high-fiving each other because we work together to bring business success, right? Especially in the startup world where you have all this pressure to grow and to, then get your next round of funding and, go from there. It's you're all in this together and you need to celebrate wins wherever they come from. But to me, where I have a direct impact, I want to make sure I can demonstrate the impact myself. Yeah.
So, Shirley, I'm going to throw this one at you in terms of challenges you face in the budgeting process or adjustments and sort of moving the leaders, if you will, to align with strategic priorities. How are you thinking about that? And what are the challenges?
Well, I think just the one that we just talked about, where there's sort of a myopic view of just, well, can you do this program and tie it to revenue? And a lot of the things that we do are enablement and brand and everything that all matter, but it's easier, it's more difficult. It's easier to track a demand against against a closed one versus some of the intangibles. So we've covered that. I think that's one of the challenges. I think the other challenge and the opportunity for marketers, though, is to think about being, back to our original discussion around being very planful. Marketing has a lot to bring to the table around two things. One being the voice of the client. What does the client want? What are they seeking? What are their needs? And how does that inform business, business prioritization around your product development? How does it inform the target market? So I think being the voice, that person at the table that brings the voice of client, number one, is really important for us as marketers. And then number two, having a big seat at the table as far as figuring out that go-to-market around where you want your sellers to focus and where you want them to not focus. And one of the things that we've been doing for the last 4 years since I've been at Forrester and getting better and better at it is fine-tuning our audience segmentation every year and being accountable to that, to say, some may say ICP or what have you, we call it our audience segmentation, and saying, what countries, what verticals, what sub-industries, which persona, getting very prescriptive. And I just reported out a couple of weeks ago around how we did as a company, not just marketing, but a company against those goals. We hit 70% of our bookings were within our tier one last year of what we set out to do. Is that good or bad? I think that's good. And I think we can even do better, and because we know that those tier ones, retain longer and they convert and they grow more. And so business, there is good business and there's also better business, and we want to get the best one. So those are two additional things I wanted to add.
No, that's so helpful and really frames it. So as you were talking, I made me wonder about, so you talked about getting to know your personas better. And are we entering the era of personalization at scale? And, Ali, I'm wondering if you're seeing that with any of your clients, because the promise now is, in theory, with an LLM, you could have these very deep understandings of the targets, and you could create these wonderful little tools that personalize it. So when I send an email to Shirley versus one to Dan, I'm giving them very personalized information. Is that where we're headed?
Well, we do have the tools available to us, which is exciting. But I also think that one natural function of marketing is setting up processes and workflows and systems and having it multi-threaded throughout the organization. And I think it's a strength that we already come into the business with. And so as our teams mature and the technology enables us, we're now able to say, okay, we can take already this good foundational, well thought out processes and workflows and engagement models, and now use LLMs to help us now do this at scale and personalize it. So it wasn't as attainable. It was always, well, if I had a bigger budget or a bigger team, I could do those things. And I think, again, the creativity and the enablement that some of the AI tools are able to provide us is going to make small and mighty marketing teams be able to do the things that we had always aspired to be able to do. So I am very bullish on that and believe that we can help personalize, because if we're truly listening to our clients, like Shirley said, the natural payoff there is then delivering the content in a more personalized manner to meet their needs. So I feel like personalization has been a theme throughout our conversation today, but it all started with, if you remember, a singular focus on where the company wanted to be. So if we know where we're going, we can have this beautiful opportunity and business plan to have a personalized approach to get there. So it really is, it's incumbent upon businesses, smart businesses today that want to grow, need to listen to this, take heed, and understand that this is the way to do it, and it will surefire way for success.
Right. You will not succeed in a peanut butter telling everybody everything. Before we get to the wrap up, Ali, you used the word creativity. Dan, you talked about at the very beginning of sort of this plan that connects, content to marketing, sourced our opportunities to revenue. We have had a 40-minute conversation and almost not talked about creativity. And that I'm finding a lot in our calls is that we're processes and we're systems and we're doing. Where does creativity, if anything, fit into this? We got objectives and we got marketing. Where's it fit? Is there hope for creative people in this business?
Oh, there's so much hope. I think what's anchored, when you're anchored towards a goal, and then the creativity, how do I get to that goal? And people feel everybody wants to be on a winning team. And if they know the objectives as marketers, within all the different functions within marketing coming together to align towards a goal, it is so powerful. We have great interactive sessions with our people, and, it's having, I think, being anchored in process and reality but then like, how do we do it? That's where our teams come alive, and using some of the new experimentative tools that are out there, or coming up with creative, stuff. It's definitely present every day.
It's so funny. You immediately sparked, I remember a creative director at Ogilvy Mather who talked about the brilliant tyranny of a well-crafted brief and how they could be more creative if the brief was that tight. Dan, any thoughts on creativity in your side? Oops, you're on mute. Uh-oh, we lost Dan's audio. All right, while we're waiting for you to get your audio back, we will go to final words of wisdom. We'll start with Shirley
Yes.
now the final words of wisdom to ensure that marketing is a business driver.
I think the theme that we've been talking about around being marketing's role is being aligned with its peers, being driven and focused, and driving that focus around business outcomes, making prioritizing choices of what to do and what not to do. Those would be my 3 key takeaways.
Yeah, and I love it. And I think the thing that's so often missing, and it was missing in our plan on a page, is what not to do. I mean, it's the very definition of strategy, at least according to some. Okay, Ali, final words of wisdom for us, other CMOs, on how to ensure marketing is a business driver.
Absolutely. Just ensure that you know that the hardest part is getting from 0 to 1. But once you get that plan in place, it's just iterating from there. And then that's when the joy and the creativity and the fun really enters the room for a marketing team, because now we know where we're going and we're going to enjoy the journey, and it's just much healthier.
I love it because we know where we're going to go. Okay, Dan, are you back with audio?
I think I'm back. Am I good?
Yes, you are. Final words of wisdom.
All right. Yeah. I mean, just from an AI perspective, if it can do a lot of the automation of things for me, it gives me more time to be creative, right? We just launched a whole new website, and every image of a bird there is created by AI. And the creative team that we worked with leveraged AI themselves, and we came up with a better experience, right? That's just one fun way to use the technology. And I would tell every CMO to experiment with AI to see how they can create a even better experience when you combine the best of AI and best of human. That would be my key takeaway there.
Awesome. I'm going to add a couple more on my end. So just the very nature of this title, the goal here is to make marketing a business driver. That's your mindset. So once you do that, you say, okay, well, how much business? So in Dan's case, he talked about 30 to 50%. So we're starting out with that. We then talk next about focus and the strategy and the simplicity that is required to create a good strategic plan. It's not 100 things, it's 3 important ones. And then the wonderful thing that where this conversation evolved, and I didn't see it coming, but it makes sense, is when you have that really tight definition of what it is that you're trying to do and what your target is about, then the creativity can flow. And if you're smart enough to use tools like Gen AI, you may find all sorts of ways of creating a lot of options that you can then, from a human standpoint, process and improve. All right. Well, thank you, Shirley, Dan, Ali. You're all wonderful sports and super smart marketers. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 4 weeks when we'll be talking about brand journeys with Heather Salerno, Brian Law, and Joy Neely. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Ishar Cuevas. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit CMOHuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep on sharing, caring, and daring.